The Niners have a wide receiver issue. Since we last talked, Brandon Aiyuk, the whole thing blew up. Now we know what's going on. Doesn't look like he's coming back. The Niners voided his guarantees because he didn't show up to some team scheduled, supervised rehab. Maybe he blew it off. Maybe he doesn't trust the Niners training staff. It's not like they have a good track record. Uh, I mean, the Raiders had something similar like this with Christian Wilkins earlier in the year. They voided his guarantees. Do you have any experience with this? Like, what do you make of the Niners taking such a hard line with Brandon Aiyuk and probably getting ready to cut him in a few months?
They may be having buyer's remorse with the contract they gave him because of the attitude, so this gives them an out. And the other thing, with if Ayuk doesn't take his grievance to the NFLPA, then there's no issue, because if he doesn't pursue it and take it forward, then the Niners, unfortunately, they can turn him loose. Now they're going to have a salary cap hit with some dead money, obviously, um, because of the length of the contract and the bonus that they gave him initially, the cash up front. I believe they're going to have to carry some dead money next year if they cut him even after the 1st of June. But it's unfortunate that a player of that talent, but let's say this in the first, we talked about this, for eons. It has never been a good marriage and a good fit, because the passing philosophy of the way the Niners throw the ball and the way they utilize their wide receivers never married well with Ayuk's skill set. He would have been great with Kurt Warner. Okay, because whether it's Ellard or Torrey Holt or Isaac Bruce and all these other great receivers the Rams had when they had the greatest show on turf, Aiyuk, and I told you when they came out, I looked at him, I said, this guy is another opportunity to be a Torrey Holt, a Henry Ellard kind of guy. But the Niners passing game doesn't have that mindset. That's not the Niners game. And so there's not a good fit. And so you're going to have frustration.
We talked about it before they signed him, and they were against the extension, and now they're doing it. And they did the extension. They had instant buyer's remorse. I mean, you said they should trade him.
They should have.
Yeah.
It would have been over.
And it's like they're so surprised that the situation played out the way it did, when really I don't think Brandon Aiyuk changed. I think he kind of showed who he was before they gave him the extension, and they thought that maybe giving him a lot of money would make him happy. But it doesn't seem like he ever really gave up his grievance that he had, either because he didn't get the ball enough in the Super Bowl or because of how the negotiation went.
Well, to be honest, Grant, I don't see how the Niners mindset and play design is going to ever be to the point where they feature Aiyuk. Right now they're featuring McCaffrey, they're featuring Kittle now that he's healthy again. But even when they all were healthy, Aiyuk never was factored into the equation as a guy who got more than 4 or 5 targets a game. And so with his talent and his skill set and his ability, that's got to be frustrating for a wide receiver.
I'm sure Aiyuk bears a lot of the responsibility and blame here for this messy divorce. It does seem, though, like he's been on this team since 2020, and it never felt like he was truly in. He always kind of felt like an outsider. He always kind of seemed a little disgruntled about his place in the pecking order. He was in the doghouse for a while. We know the Niners have some players who are lifers. Kittle, Juszczyk. I like to call them the Cabo clique. Do you think there's anything here with just like locker room dynamics? A guy who kind of always felt like a bit of an outsider?
Well, if he's not welcomed into the club when you draft him, you bring him in, and the coach doesn't make an effort to make him feel like he's an integral part of the offense and of the scheme, and he has a value, then how do you expect him as a player to feel like he really belongs and not, be a little chafed with how he's being treated? And so
Kyle worked like he bent over backwards for Debo, Christian, Kittle to make them feel that way throughout the years. And Brandon was always the one who was like, hey, it's my turn.
Yeah. See, that gets back to the point when you sit there as a coordinator and a designer, you've got to be able to sit there and say, okay, I got 5 guys. I've got to find a way to have something for each of them. I've got to divide the pie up and give them all slices here and there to keep them in the ball game. If I went through the first 4 plays of a ball game and I did not have a ball thrown Cliff Branch. Hey, I would expect Clifford to say, get over to the sideline, pick up the phone. Hey, he says, Tom, what's going on? Why am I not involved? Why am I not getting the ball? Why was I not targeted or at least had a pass called where I was a featured receiver within the first 4 or 5 plays of the game?
What did you think of the Niners coming out against the Panthers on Monday night and Kyle calling the first 5 plays for Christian?
Well, besides knowing that it was going to happen, there's no surprise. There's no shock. That whole ball club, because if Kyle does the script and you rehearse the script and you walk through the script on Friday and Saturday, every player knows he's got the sheet in his hand. He holds up the piece of paper and he says, McCaffrey, 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 McCaffrey. Well, hey, there are no surprises as long as McCaffrey stays healthy. Now, some of those passes were maybe by check down, or some of them are just when you see the depth of the defense drop, you're just going to drop the ball off quickly to McCaffrey so that he has grass to which he can run before the defense congregates around him. But yeah, it's unfortunate. See, that I look at, and people talk about Bill Walsh for decades and the success that he had with Roger Craig and Jerry Rice and John Taylor and the tight ends that he had come through there, Franks and those guys. But Bill made it a concerted effort to get players involved in the game early. And, that was Sid Gilman's philosophy. And, Sid was my football father from back in the early 70s. And that's how I was taught, and after 53, 55 years, I still have that philosophy. You've got to get your players involved in the game. You've got to find a play to which you can get the ball to a receiver or running back or a handoff, get them in the flow of the game, get them feeling like they're a weapon, make the opponent realize that there's more than 2 tines to the fork.
Yep.
Five spokes, and the Niners have their bicycle's got 2 spokes on the wheel as opposed to 5 spokes. Because Kyle,
right? It's the same concept in basketball, right? You want to get all your scorers involved early in the game so they're confident and they're shooting.
Correct.
Yeah, it's the same concept.